and welcome. So, today's episode is our first of a series where we are going to be inviting Shawn Schnabl, aka my husband, aka the CEO of his amazing company, Epic Mortgage, to the podcast, and we're going to interview him. And today we're really just going to be getting to know Shawn. For those who don't know him, he's got an amazing story and just so much to share. Honestly, sometimes I think more than me. So I'm really excited that he's willing to share and use this platform to help others really learn from some of his lessons and, mistakes over the years. So I'm really grateful that he was willing to join us, and I think you're going to really like this episode and future ones with Shawn. So let's dive on in. All right. Well, thank you to Shawn to take some time out of his busy schedule to chat with us today. You're going to see Shawn, as I said, more and more on the podcast because I think he's got so much that we can learn from, and we're going to deep dive into more specific things moving forward. But I think it's important that we get to know Shawn and hear a little bit about him. So thank you, dear, for being on the podcast.
Well, first of all, I feel special today. I can't believe that I'm on it today. I've been asking I think every week, and you're like, no, someone else. But at least, hey, I'm podcast 17, so at least I finally made it. So thanks for having me.
You made it. Yeah. If you do a good job, you might be invited back.
Oh, okay. I'll be on good behavior then.
Well, let's dive in.
Yeah.
So, people want to learn about you. So, tell me about your first job, how you got it, and kind of how that came to be. Because I think when you see a CEO, it's very hard to think
Yeah.
about how the person got there, and I think it's important that people know that things are possible for them too, and that you didn't just wake up one day and start a company. You did things that got you there, and those things did get you there. So, tell us about your first job.
Yeah. It's funny. It starts at a bus stop of all things. I grew up in a big city named Waukesha, and unfortunately, I did not live close to my school, so I didn't get to take the yellow bus like all the other people were able to do. I had to take the city bus across town, and I had the bus would take me downtown, and there was a transfer. They called it transfer, and so I had to like jump onto another bus, and it was a long ordeal. But what happened was during the wintertime, it'd be really cold, and I don't know about you, but in the wintertime, as you know, in Wisconsin, it sucks. So um, I looked across the way one day and I saw a Sentry and had a vestibule where I could sit and stand and wait and stay warm. And I could see if the bus pulled up so I can run up and jump into it. And when I was sitting there, I was I was a freshman in high school, and my parents didn't really, asking them for money was like going to Fort Knox. So I kind of always had to kind of figure it out on myself. I saw the sign, applied, and yeah, the rest was history. I'm like, man, I'm here. I might as well utilize this time and just, I should just almost work here. It takes me right from school to here. Then I can figure out how to get home at night from there. So I started working at Century when I was about 15 years old, and it just kind of happened. Saw a sign, had a need, and I attacked it. So
You saw an opportunity to work at Century.
I saw an
And
opportunity to stock shelves.
it's important to know they did not call you back right away, right?
No, they didn't. They'd called me back. I applied during the wintertime because it was cold time. So I think it was probably January. And then funny enough, they called me back during the summertime while I was in baseball. And yeah, so
The
I
stars
was,
aligned. Did you
yeah,
even
I was
remember
actually,
you applied?
I honestly forgot that I applied. I'm like, what? Who? And, we didn't have cell phones then. So they called my home phone and my dad was like, hey, Century called you. And I'm like, why would they call me? And I'm thinking I'm in trouble or I did something. And then it dawned on me. I'm like, oh, that's right. I applied like 6 months ago for this job. So yeah, you know what they paid back then? 4.25 was minimum wage, and I was happy.
Oh,
Yeah, four and a
paid
quarter.
for
But I
your
learned a lot.
lunch.
Yeah, I learned a lot of lessons there. A lot of lessons because it was like my first job punching in, punching out. And I
And
gotta,
you were not a good employee, right?
I gotta admit, I was not, you've heard the stories. I was not a very good employee. I was the guy, I'm kind of chatty, get to know me, I'm pretty chatty, Kathy. So I talked a lot. I distracted people a lot. I stood there, went really slow. For the first year, couple of years, I was not the model employee. And thankfully, because they liked my personality so much, at least I think, they kept me around. And then um, one summer, I went and did like a cleaning windows to make a little more money. And I realized really quickly just how good I had it at Century, and that cleaning windows was not something I wanted to be doing. Not saying that stocking shelves and facing and doing that thing was anything great, but definitely knew that I had it pretty good there, and realized that I needed to kind of grow up and step up. And then what I did is I went back because I said I could have my job back, which I was shocked. Um, but I wanted to be a different person. I wanted to apply myself. I wanted to try hard. I wanted to learn. Something all of a sudden just kind of clicked for me that I wanted to learn what are my managers doing every day? Who I'm reporting to? Like, what are their roles every day? And I just started asking a lot of questions, and I just asking for more stuff on my plate when I was there. And before you know it, true story. At some point, I became the store manager at 18 years old at that store.
I'm glad it's a true story.
Yep.
No, pretty wild. You naturally had some of those things, but at the same time, it's important to note that I think people would like to know the fact that you weren't always so perfect and you were kind of a pain in the butt. And if you have people on your team who might not be pulling their weight, I think it's important to give them the opportunity to do so and to share what you want to see out of them, because you're a good example of, somebody recognized something in you and you continued to grow. And I think that's really important, that even if you're dealing with maybe an employee who isn't a rock star, that they can change.
Well, I think it's also like finding your why or what's motivating that person. At least for me, it was like I found my why. I found my motivation internally. And I think as leaders, you know, sometimes, if they don't fit your box, you kind of like, oh, you don't have time for them. And I think as leaders, we have to learn what makes them tick. What is their why? How do we motivate them? And let's face it, as you know, everybody's different. Everyone's why is different. Everything that, everyone's hot button is different. Um, like I'm a rah, get in your face, da da da. And I know some people aren't like that. And that, doesn't go well. So
Like me.
correct. So one thing that I always try is to really understand the person. I try to understand their love languages, like, because I want people to feel important because they are, and
Mhm.
just because they're not just like you, and let's just face it, a lot of Shawn Schnabels in this world would not be good for anybody. Um,
That'd be a lot. That'd be a lot. Just a lot of things.
and I have a ton of weaknesses, right? So I need to surround myself that where they're strong in areas that I'm weak at. And that's honestly for me as a leader, when I really understood that, like what I just talked about, with understanding people, how to motivate them, how to understand and understand that they're all different and whatnot. That's honestly when I went to the next level.
Hmm. Yeah, we could do a whole episode on leadership and leading
Yep.
people for
Yeah,
sure.
that's another podcast for another day. I'll be honest with you, I hate talking about myself.
Sorry,
I
that's kind of what
honestly would
you're
rather
doing
be
here.
asking, I'd rather be asking you all the questions because I'm so proud of you. And I feel like, I don't, it's just, I could talk
That's
about
very
everything else
sweet.
but myself. So this podcast has probably given me this is the hardest one for me for sure.
Well, we've got
And I
some
don't want
more
to
here.
bore people with
So
my stuff.
it's not boring. I think there's something to learn from here. So
Do you
you
remember
got
the
into
first thing I ever
mortgages.
told you? Do you remember the first thing I ever told you when you met me?
Oh gosh.
That I'm a pretty boring person.
Oh, I was like, I mean, you told me a lot of things, but yes, you did tell me you were a boring person. I don't know why you said that, because you're not. Sometimes I'm like, I can't keep up with you and all the things you want to do. So
Maybe you're
I don't
bringing
know
up
where
about
I don't know where that came from. Okay, so forward a bit because I purposefully like to keep our episodes not too long. So you got into mortgages in 2009, not
yes.
11, like I accidentally wrote. So you got into the mortgage business in your 30s, which is really cool because you kind of had a whole career ahead of that, which we probably won't dive into just for the sake of time. But you were selling cars and then were a finance manager. So you, over time, realized that wasn't something you wanted to be doing. So you literally started your career over again in your 30s, which is crazy to me because as someone in their early ish 30s, the idea of dropping what I'm doing and changing everything seems so scary, but you did that. So, what did your first few years look like going from
Uh,
being the expert where you were? We deal with this a lot in real estate and in lending, as you know, where you leave everything you know and you start a career from scratch. What did that look like?
It was honestly really scary because at the time in 2009, the recession was going on and the car business was not what it was anymore from when I started earlier in 2000. And people weren't buying cars, people weren't buying houses. I was basically jumping from one sinking ship to the other sinking ship. My thinking on it was if I can make it work in a hard market, tough market in 2009, I can make it work when the market gets a little bit easier. Um, and I was also going from a job where I knew everything and had a steady salary plus commission going to 100% commission, and not knowing anything. I didn't even know what networking meant. I thought it was something with computers and phones or something, and I had to learn so many different things with outside sales. So it was very daunting, but I burned the boats, as some people like to say or put it, and I bet on myself. And I thankfully I'm a quick learner. If I see something, I'm kind of visual. So I was able to pick up on a lot of different things. Before you know it, there was a guy next to me in the office who was in the business probably 20 years, and he was asking me more questions than I was probably asking him, which I thought was pretty odd. But I was actually, patting myself on the back a little bit. But the one thing, and I'll just kind of wrap up quick short, is the one thing I knew right away when I was brand new is that I needed to be present. I needed to be out there. I wasn't going to make money sitting in front of my computer. And back in 2009, that's what everyone was doing. They were sitting in front of the computer waiting for their desk phone to ring. Um, and I knew how to make it happen. So I went to anything that had realtor next to it or mortgages next to it. I went to it. I was present. I was cold calling realtors I was just literally Googling Waukesha County realtors and started calling them and start making appointments. No joke, Morgan. I would literally sweat in my car in the parking lot waiting to go walk in and meet with the realtor because I was so afraid they're going to ask me a question I didn't know the answer to. Later on I found out that they're not going to ask me a question that they probably don't know the answer to. It's probably, if they're going to ask me a question, it's going to be a layup that I should know. And that was pretty much the case. But you don't think that when you're brand new. So
Yeah, you deal with this a lot now as you coach new loan officers. When you enter sales, it's so backwards from the corporate world where you have training and then you work, but in sales, you need to work and then you get your training. I mean, there's some training initially.
yeah,
Epic has a ton of training actually, but some of it, there's just no way around. You learn as
learn
you
as you go.
actually have something, which is can be very daunting.
It is, especially when, like you just said, in the car business, I knew how to run a dealership from A to Z, everything, service, parts, buying new cars, selling new cars, praising cars, to knowing nothing. And the sales cycle is completely different. Where the mortgage, you could pre-approve somebody and they might not buy for 6 months to a year to 2 years. In the car business, it's pretty immediate. They buy the car, they deliver it, and off it goes. So I had to figure out a mindset, which could be another conversation for another day about winning the day and getting better every day. And did I do something to build my business today for tomorrow?
That would be a good episode.
Yes.
Well, obviously now you have started your own company, you and your business partner. So what ultimately made you decide to do that? Because that's a very scary thing and you were told for a long time that that was really
Yeah.
not an option.
Yeah.
So why what made you do that?
I think I kind of got to the crossroads where, I was building my team. Brad was kind of building his team. And, I was working for kind of like I told you back in 2009, the business was done differently. Well, I felt like Abe, where I was at, they were kind of doing the same thing where they're working like they're old school and business was changing. And I was constantly trying to help change how they ran their business. And as you know, this happens a lot in corporate America where you come with ideas and they look at you and they just don't want to do it. And so most of my ideas were turned down or gave me a reason why it wouldn't work. Um, and so I just got tired of changing other people and how they do things. So decided I should start my own thing. And once again, kind of like back in 2009 when I burned the boats and believed, bet on myself. My business partner and I decided to bet on ourselves. And so, and rest assured, just like when I got in the business in 2009, during the recession, rates jump literally the month after we started to the highest peak they've been in years. So, what do you know?
They sure did. Now, I think it's important to note, people use these phrases like burn the boats, and that all sounds great and cool, right? Okay, I want to do that. I want to burn the boats. What does that mean in real life? Like what in both
Well,
scenarios, what did it really mean for you to burn the boats?
burn the boats means like I bet on myself where I had no backup. It wasn't like I had someone I can rely on to help me financially. It was betting completely 100% on myself and my ability and my drive and my hunger, my willingness to work and wake up every day and get better every day. And that's really what it was. I don't have call my mom and dad and say, hey, can you help me out with some money? I need this, so it's literally burning the boats. You can't go backwards. You can only go forward. And I think a lot of times people that have that backup and they don't burn the boats, I think sometimes they don't push themselves as hard as they could. Because at the end of the day, and this is probably another podcast for another day, is people got to believe in themselves. And I'm a big believer that when you believe in yourself and you believe you can achieve it, you can achieve anything. But you have to first believe in yourself. And I'll say one thing, and not to, I don't know if I'll make you blush or anything, Morgan, but you really helped me believe in myself. I don't think I always say this, that I don't know if I would have had the courage to burn the boats and do it without you.
Well, now I am blushing. Yeah, it's sometimes you need other people to believe in you too. And that's why it's so important to surround yourself with good people and not people who are unwilling to move forward or don't believe in themselves too.
Yeah.
It's the old saying, if you go into a room of five smokers, well, you become the sixth smoker.
Yeah. It's funny, and you and I've talked about this too, that I think if you really knew how hard it would be sometimes, like you would know, I think a lot of people wouldn't do it and take the risk. Like a lot of things that I've gone through, like '09, you know, even at Century, starting Epic Mortgage, like if I knew the difficulties on the road to get to what success looked like, I don't know if I would have taken the chance, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Yeah.
sometimes it's better the unknown and just kind of figuring out as you go, because
Mm-hmm.
people see the fun, people see the success, people see, that, but they don't see what all the hard work that a lot of entrepreneurs do at the beginning to get to that point. The months or weeks or years, I guess, without getting a paycheck, just to build something.
Oh, there's so many stories that I really can't share, but lots of stories that, man, we didn't know about when you started
Yeah.
Epic. Yes. So, how are things different for you now versus when you were in the business and not the CEO? You're still in the same industry, but how is your life different now? Your day to day.
Yeah. Well, when I was not the CEO and I was by myself, I mean, I was worried pretty much about myself. I was worried about, my meetings with realtors, my business partners, my clients. my system, my individual process. Now as a CEO, I'm looking at bigger picture. I'm looking at numbers, submissions. I'm looking at like dollars and cents of how much this costs because, when you have a company, the volume compared to when you're by yourself, the volume is, 60x what it was before or whatnot. So it really adds up quick. Um, and then I do a lot of coaching and mentoring of the salespeople, which I enjoy and love. We're big believers at Epic Mortgage that the givers gain, the care, and having the right people. So we pour into our people every day, constantly trying to figure out what we can do better to help other people get better and hit their goals that they want to achieve. And that's really our main focus every day. Our leadership team is making sure that our leadership team is focused on that, and they're always evolving, and we're always reinvesting back into the company and reinvesting in our people. And the biggest thing is to see, I make sure that I think a lot of CEOs are so worried about growth that sometimes I think they forget about retention and the culture and what's going on with the people at your company. And so I really try to as a CEO, try to be mindful of that and making
Yeah,
sure the vision
definitely.
that and then making sure everyone understands the vision of where we're headed, where we're on the same track, but everyone understands what success looks like.
Hmm.
So you have to talk
Yeah,
about it. You almost got to be the voice. I feel like I'm the voice a lot when it comes to it. And I
right.
enjoy it. I love it. It's my passion.
You steer the ship.
Correct. But I have a lot of really good people around me. My business partner is amazing as well. So I'm a lucky guy. Between you, Brad, our leadership team, all the people that work at Epic, I honestly always say this. It would not be, it's not about me. It's not about it's about the people.
Hmm. No, that's for sure. Can't do it alone.
No,
So, to finish up on this intro, get to know Shawn Schnabl, give everyone a little piece of your wisdom. I think we've learned a lot about you. What would you say is your one single biggest piece of advice for someone, as somebody who's gone through a lot and you've gone through a lot of highs and lows, your biggest piece of advice for somebody going through a challenging circumstance now?
I say don't give up and don't focus on the negative, focus on the positive. And I say this all the time. Don't worry about keeping pushing mountains. Worry about moving pebbles every day. And I think that sometimes you look at the problem in a big picture, it kind of becomes overwhelming and daunting, and it makes you kind of scared and you want to go hide. Just start one thing at a time, one pebble at a time, and keep moving it. And I promise you, if you focus on that and focus on the positive and don't, because it's all about the mind and being in the right headspace. Um, Worry about one thing at a time, and I promise you, if you worry about it just A to Z, 1 to 10, it will and move that one pebble. You'll do great things, and it will work out.
Yeah, definitely. It can be a bit daunting looking at an entire project in one piece.
It does. Like you get lost in the woods, right? You got to see through it. And especially as a leader, if you're a leader, you definitely need to see through it. And you got to make sure no one else thinks that, you know, the sky is falling or anything. You're the pilot of the ship or the pilot of the airplane. Man, you're gonna
Hmm.
have all sorts of Schnabel sayings. People are like, what is he talking about?
We'll get a glossary going.
It's gonna be a long
All
one.
right. Yes. Well, we've already got like 10 of them.
Yeah.
We'll
Sorry if
get
I'm
it started.
long-winded on this one, guys. I'm sure hopefully you guys all made it to the end here.
Well,
As
thank
people
you
say,
for
I
giving
I
us
say
your
long.
time.
Yeah. Yep. You're welcome.
What were
See,
you saying?
I'm always got long stories and I just keep going.
Well, there is a lot to learn, more to come, and thank you for your time today. We'll see you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.